Listeners, joy is often treated like a reward, something we earn after success, after healing, after life settles down. But what if joy is actually a signal, a quiet inner harmony that becomes available the moment we begin listening more deeply to ourselves? Welcome to Sacred Harmony, a space where we explore inner alignment, gentle awareness, and the rhythms that bring us back to ourselves. I am your host Pragya, and today I am joined by Larry Kesslin, who is an entrepreneur, author, and seeker whose book, The Joy Molecule, explores how clarity around your what, who, and why can lead to a more aligned and joyful life. In this conversation, we'll explore joy, inner peace, music, and what decades of lived experience can teach us about coming home to ourselves. Larry, firstly, welcome to the show. It is such an honor to host you today, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you very much, Pragya. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the opportunity.
That's wonderful, Larry. To start with, it's a very direct question, I may say, but then again, to start with this, many people believe that, joy is something which is external, right? You'd be joyous if you had success or you've achieved something or, there are circumstances lining up. So what do you feel is most misunderstood about joy and inner peace, and what is your definition of it?
Well, my definition of joy is synonymous with inner peace. And I think inner peace comes when you know what you are, who you are, and why you are. And I picked those three in that order because I believe at the end of the day, all of these journeys, the journey towards inner peace, the journey towards joy, is all about connection. And the first person we need to connect with is our true self, not the one we create in our mind, not the identity we associate to ourselves, not our ego, but our true self, the one that lives inside and observes our thoughts, observes our feelings, and gets to decide what to do with those thoughts and feelings. And I think that most of the people that I've met on my journey want someone to give them that silver bullet or that pill that will make them feel complete and feel enough. And that only comes when you realize that you're not what you think you are. And our mind from an early age, from the time we're born, is trying to create constructs that keep us safe and keep us comfortable. And that is what forms our identity. And what I've learned on my journey is that my identity is not me, that I am the owner of the identity, the decider of what I do with that identity. And when that identity is the one that is controlling the experience, then I don't think we'll ever find peace. That's where I see it at this point in my life. And that could be different 10 years from now. I have no idea. Right now, on this part of my journey, I believe that I have more peace than I've ever had. And maybe I don't know what the next level of peace feels like at this moment in time. Yet I'm on a path and I'll get where I get. And if I don't have a lot of attachment to what I get, then that makes my life a lot easier.
That is beautiful. And that totally resonate with what you said, that joy is inner peace for you. And that is beautiful because sometimes you just, forget that there is so much joy in being peaceful inside, wherein, you are not worried about literally every other thing and you're enjoying every moment with yourself. And that is the real joy that I feel. And thank you for your explanation of it. And yeah, let's stay with that for a moment as of now. Because, from your journey, what I want to know what tends to pull people away from joy at a deeper level. Because, a lot of times in our lives, they're not always joyous. And I'm so sure that is not how life is anyways planned. But then, what pulls people away from their joy or their inner peace? When they go down on the deeper levels. So what is your take?
I think that inner peace and joy are stolen from birth. I think from the moment You start getting information from everyone around you. If you grew up, so I did not grow up in a household filled with joy. My dad went broke when I was 10. Not that I was starving or not having a roof over my head, but where I grew up, we were relatively not affluent compared to others. I wouldn't call myself poor by any stretch of the imagination. And my house did not have a lot of joy. It had love, and I felt loved, but I didn't know what joy really felt like as a child growing up. So finding joy later in life was something I needed to seek. And if you don't go on a journey to try and find it and you just live what you're taught, in my book, I have something I call the 20 something rule. And that concept is that from birth to 20, the world teaches you who it wants you to be. And from 20 to death, you get to decide, am I going to live out my life the way the world taught me to be, or am I going to figure out who I was born to be? And I believe that's the journey that we're all on. I see us on this ascension ladder. I've done a lot of studying of Abraham Maslow, and everybody believes that Maslow created the hierarchy of needs. I don't believe that Maslow created a hierarchy of needs. I think some consultants that wanted to use his concepts in business created that. What he created was more of a continuum, that the first thing we need is food, water, shelter, and safety. And that's kind of the survival part of our lives. And there's many people on this planet today that are still in survival mode. But once you get past survival mode, which is where most of the people that I've interacted with in my life, unless I've traveled internationally, most people that are beyond survival, it comes now back to self-esteem and love and belonging. And that's where we go on this journey to figure out who we are and to feel included. And then we go to self-actualization, is figuring out our reason for being. And then Maslow even talked about the next stage, which is self-ascension. And I think we're all on this ascension ladder. And I think the reason we're here is to wake up. And once we do wake up, our opportunity is to pull the people lower on the ladder up and to reach up to those above us to learn the lessons we need to learn to continue on this ascension ladder. And about 6 months, about 2 months before I wrote my book, my brother asked me why I was writing another book. And people keep asking me that. And they're like, is the book sales going well? And I'm like, I don't care whether the book sells or not. I wrote the book for me. I wrote it to help me stabilize the rung that I'm on the ladder. I wrote it to create a platform that allowed me to realize that on this ascension journey, this is where I am. I understand that it's important to understand my what is our society, my identity, how I make a living, things of that nature. My who. It's really important for me to know my values. I understand that my purpose on this planet is to help people connect to themselves, help them connect to others, and then connect to the resources that help them leave this planet better than we found it. And I've understood my why. And when I understand those three things, I can connect with other people at those levels. I can connect at the what level, but it's not that fulfilling. I can connect at the who level, which is really much more enjoyable than the what level, but it's the why connections that bring me the most amount of peace. So on this journey, I'm where I am. I'm not better than anybody else. I'm not worse than anybody else. I just am. And when I let go of comparison, which to me is the killer of joy, it's the killer of enoughness. When I let go of comparison and I just look at my journey, look at my present moment, stop worrying about what happened in the past, stop being frustrated by what happened or what might happen or anything like that. The only moment that is right now. And that's all we can do is be here. And I think that most people don't even seek. They don't even understand that there's a journey to go on because they're living what they were taught for the first 20 years of their life. And that identity that we create is useful. It's not evil. It's just an identity. But when we believe that identity is us, I think that's where the struggle is formed.
Oh my God, how beautifully you've explained that. And thank you for sharing your journey again. And thank you for giving us the fresh perspective of Maslow's hierarchy because, as you said, it must have been taken by these people in business, to rationalize or justify their working. But thank you for giving that fresh perspective because I have never heard of it, and that made so much sense, and that was amazing.
If you do any searching on any of the search engines and I ask, did Maslow create his hierarchy of needs? They'll come back with some research and some pieces that were written. And I've talked to a lot of people. My last book was called Success Redefined. And I redefined Maslow's hierarchy of needs in my last book as a plate, where what if they were all equal? What if we could stop worrying about wants and only focus on needs and determine the difference between the two? And I think in my culture, I'm not sure what it's like in India. Can only assume, but I plan on visiting there at some point in my future. But what I've experienced in my culture is that we've confused wants for needs. And I've boiled down my needs to 7 things, maybe 8. So I need food, I need water, I need shelter, I need love, food, water, shelter, love, air, health, and I need sex. I mean, I hate to say it, but there's some of us that are very physical creatures. So what are the things we actually need in order for us to be happy? And that's a really interesting question because I think the challenge that the Western hemisphere faces is that we have made things into needs. My son, who's 24 years old when he was a child and still to this day, says, Dad, I need this and I need that. And I tell him all the time, you don't need those things. Those are wants. And when we forget wants and turn them into needs, then our happiness is challenged. But joy is a totally different construct than happiness. Happiness for me is getting my needs met, but joy is a sense of knowing that my mind is just a tool for me to use. It is not me. And for my journey, at this point in my journey, that is the most critical thing for me to understand.
That was amazing. Thank you for that. And yeah, I totally feel that the listeners they resonate with it. And yeah, you were right, a lot of people they have their own needs and that's okay. And then coming up to the levels that Maslow has defined and all of that is what brings you to joy. Joy is very subjective. It's different for everybody, and it's better that are aware of that too, because then that is the path that you work for then. And you speak about clarity around the what, who, and why. How can someone begin gently exploring these without turning it into another pressure filled project? So, how can they be aware of their what, who, and why?
Yeah, I understand the question around pressure of just finding out more. I think it's more of an inward journey and stop looking outside to quiet the mind and to keep it from being your boss. So my mind is not my boss. My mind is just my mind. I am the one who decides which thoughts have value and which thoughts don't. To get to that place, I think it all starts with simply noticing that you need to change, that the way you're living in the world is not working for you. And if it's working for you, there's nothing to change. But if you don't believe it's working for you, the first step in any change is to simply notice. And when we simply notice that this is not working for me, if we simply notice that I have more stress than I wish I had, those are all constructs of the mind. If I look beyond my mind, if I look at my spirit is 100% love. My spirit is 100% abundant. My spirit lives in gratitude. And my spirit is neutral. It has no meaning and it has no attachment. My mind is the one that creates meaning. So if somebody's going to start the first way to start is just to simply notice that something's not in alignment. And I met somebody a little over a year ago. Her name is Lucia. And I was going through a really struggling time. And she looked at me. She got piercing blue eyes. And she looked at me and she said, "It's just a decision." And I looked at her. I said, "That's easy for you to say. But now that I found my own peace, and now that I've made it to the point where I do understand what she was talking about, that is the truth. It's just a decision. It's a decision to live your life through your own lens of how your source and what your source was put here to do. So if we really looked inside each of us, my dream, my fantasy is that each of us have a knowing inside of us of something we're supposed to work on. And if all 8 billion of us had the freedom to look inside and figure out the thing that we were put here to do, like my being was put in this machine called a human body. This human machine at birth was given a name. That name is Larry. Lawrence was my birth name. And I've been taught how to be. But inside, I was given this reason for being on this planet. And I'm supposed to be here to do this thing. I'm not sure what that thing is. I think I'm getting closer to it. And if every one of us, all 8 billion of us, were to do that together, I don't think there'd be any war. I don't think there'd be any challenges. I think we would solve most of the challenges we're faced on this planet. And everybody keeps saying we need to save the planet. Pragya, we don't need to save the planet. The planet's going to be fine. We need to save the ability for the planet to support humanity. What we're doing is creating so much damage to the planet that there's a possibility that it'll not support humans. But the planet itself, it will still be here. We are the ones that are in a challenging situation if we look at it that way. I doubt it'll happen in my lifetime. I don't know about my kids or my grandkids or my great-grandkids, but there'll come a point where this planet is no longer inhabitable and the planet will go on and recreate itself. So I guess for me right now, if somebody were to start, the only place to start is to simply notice that my life is not working the way that I want it to work. And when that happens, it's like, okay, what are my options? And the first option is to learn what we actually are. At the end of the day, when we understand that we are a being that is having a human experience, that has a mind, has a body, it has 5 senses, that we get to decide how we're going to drive this vehicle versus the mind being the controller of this vehicle. I think that's the first test. Once you get past that first test, I think there's other tests after that. But those are the people that I see that walk with joy, as I think they've understood that. I think they understand that they are a being that has access to mind and to spirit and to feeling, and they get to decide what to do with it. Although many of them that I've met don't think about it that way. They just live from that place. And that's a beautiful thing. I happen to be incredibly intellectual, so I intellectualize it and I can explain it and I can talk to people about it. And it's really enjoyable to help people that are stuck watch their weight just drop off them. Some of the people I work with have had major transformations by not being attached to outcome and just letting things unfold. Because the truth is, we label things as good and bad. And I can promise you right now that in the moment, we have no idea what is good and bad. If I look back at my life after 62 trips around the sun, and if I look back at some of the moments I thought were the most horrible moments of my life, they were probably some of the most important moments of my life. They had more energy. They had more teaching opportunities, but they weren't bad. Even though I thought they were bad in the moment, they weren't bad. So why do we label things as good or bad? What they are, they're just moments. So I'll get back to the idea of just noticing, simply noticing that my life is not working the way that I want to. And my opportunity is to inspect how I use this vehicle that we call a human body, how I use this thing called the mind, and whether I let the mind be the judge, jury, and executioner, or whether I let the mind be a tool that I have access to. I think that's the biggest thing.
It indeed is, and beautifully you've again explained it. And yeah, that makes all of the sense. And to continue with, I have another question, which is, when joy, it feels distant again, as we talked about how it drifts apart, and you know um, you've given us insights on that too. And I want to know what helps you return to inner peace without judgment, because with we know how to come back to inner peace, to let go of a few things. And there are life journeys through that as well. But then there is a lot of judgment involved in this process. So, what is your take on, eradicating that judgment? Because that in the longer run harms a lot. So, what is your take on that, the judgment part of it?
I think judgment is the flip of curiosity. So if you want to stop judging, become more curious. In my journey, I had this construct that came to me about this idea that life is either hard, challenging, or easy. So some people walk through this planet and life is easy. Some it's challenging, and for some it's really hard. But there's three levels of hard. And when I saw this, it changed my judgment to curiosity. And there are people that are hard, that something happens in their life and their spirit says, this journey as being a human is just too hard. My body's going to age. My senses are going to heighten. Yet my spirit, the inner part of me, is done. My mind is going to run this show for the rest of my life, and there's no opportunity for spirit. The second level of hard is that this journey is hard. My spirit doesn't want to feel this, and it needs to numb itself. So that's where alcohol and drugs and everything else come in. And again, Pragya, these are my ideas. This is not fact or truth. This is just how I see things. And then the last part of hard is when your spirit says, this part, this journey in this vehicle is so hard, I need to end it. And that's where suicide comes in. So when I meet somebody who in the past did not live life the way that I thought they should, which is part of the challenge, that's a judgment, then I would judge them. And now I'm more curious. What happened in their childhood? What happened to them when they were younger that caused them to numb themselves, that caused them to need to get drunk and use cocaine or whatever drugs they needed to escape from the reality that is so harsh? And I don't want to judge them because I have no idea what's happened to them. And many of them could have had horrific things happen. And I can understand where numbing it makes a lot of sense to them. So for me, I try to replace judgment with curiosity. And I think that's something that provides us an opportunity to reframe how we see others and eliminate the word should from our vocabulary. Should is our harshest judgment on ourselves. I should have done this. I should have done that. No, you did what you did. You learned the lesson, or you didn't learn the lesson. For me, life is a continuum of lessons. We get lessons every day. And if we learn the lesson, we get a new one. And if we get the old one, we get it back. So it's just a continuous lesson. There's nothing to hide from. There's nothing to get mad at. It just is. It's like the weather. The analogy I use the most is that I am the sky. My thoughts are the clouds, and the weather are my feelings. Some of the clouds are heavy. Some of the clouds are light. Some of them move quickly. Some of them move slowly. But above it all is the sky, and I'm the sky. And sometimes my feelings they're windy, and sometimes it's stormy, and sometimes it's peaceful. But at the end of the day, I am not the clouds, and I'm not the weather. I am the sky. And when we learn that and understand that and get rid of judgment and release all that, then life becomes so much more peaceful. And we get to be instead of judging. And probably the if we judge others, we're probably more harsh on ourselves than anyone else. So be curious as to why we do things. Judgment is a challenge, curious is an opportunity.
That's so true. That's and there is a key takeaway that I have today. Thank you for all the insights, though. The joy and inner peace, it emerged not from becoming more, but from remembering who you are beneath the noise and from all the lessons and all the experiences that you've had. And as you rightly said, that either you'll have a lesson, and even if you don't, you would probably you would probably have it, again later somewhere else or sometime else. And that is the key takeaway that I'm taking from you today. And Larry, where can listeners connect with you or learn more about the joy molecule? Just let them know so that they reach out to you whenever they want.
Sure, the Joy Molecule is available on Amazon. You can get it in paperback or Kindle, and I'm finishing up the audiobooks that'll be available probably in the next 30 to 45 days. You can reach me on my website at 5-dots.com. But if you want to send me an email, my email's pretty easy. It's larry@kesslin.com. And I'm happy to talk to anybody about this topic. And I love helping people find their way on their journey.
That's great. Listeners, you have a freebie. Just please, if you have anything or you need any insights, or even if you, read the book or listen to the audiobook later, just let him know how it made you feel. And thank you for sharing this sacred space with us on Sacred Harmony. May today offer you a moment of stillness, a note of music, or a breath that brings you back to yourself. Until next time, move gently, listen deeply, and stay in harmony.